Namaste and welcome to Satsang today. So today I want to continue a kind of a theme that came up during our virtual retreat this weekend, because I think it's a really important subject, and it was certainly where I struggled the most in my own awakening journey, and it seemed to really resonate when we talked about it in retreat with a lot of people. So we were looking at what perhaps the most challenging aspect of awakening is. What does that, what is it that takes all that time? What is it that seems to be faster for other beings and, longer, short, trickier for some of us? Certainly took me a very long time, this part of my awakening, and that was really to allow what I had seen to be true to change my thought process, my whole thought process, because that wasn't clear to me at first. And if somebody could have given me a kind of a heads up, and of course, probably every teacher and teaching I ever immersed myself in was saying that, and I couldn't hear it perhaps, but for the sake of clarity, you're going to be asked by life, if you want to live as this truth that we're coming to see in Satsang, you're going to be asked to allow it to replace all of your thought structure, all of your thought system. So if you look at how many of your thoughts during the day are based on the idea, so the regular habitual thoughts, that you're a separate being, and the percentage of those throughout the day, for me, even after a clear seeing, it was probably a clear seeing that I am not at all what I thought I was. I'm not actually someone here doing all of this stuff. I'm not choosing what to speak. I'm not choosing what to do. I'm not choosing what to think. I'm not actually doing any action. I'm not going to sleep. I'm not waking up in the morning. I don't have any relationships. I don't have any family, although the appearance of all of that is still, of course, happening. And when I looked at my own thought process, perhaps 99.99% of my thoughts each day were actually about my life as a separate being, my stories based on who I had thought that I was. And it was even a surprise to me that I had this idea somewhere inside that with a deep and clear seeing, that all of my thought process would change kind of automatically. All of my stories, my karmic patterns, vasanas, samskaras, whatever you want to call them, would just kind of fall away in that. And some of it did. I don't know, about 20% maybe. The rest of my thoughts had to be examined when they came up, and that really took quite some time, because I wasn't aware, first of all, that I'd have to do that. That was the price really for living as the truth, was allowing it to change your habitual thought processes. So I'm not talking about the everyday thoughts such as I need to get ready or I'm going to be late for work. Those thoughts are, where did I put my car keys? Those are kind of functional thoughts, and they can be even useful. And the ones I mean, like, oh, you forgot to turn the light off. So you go back in and switch it off. The thoughts that I'm talking about are really very set habitual thoughts, usually the way we think about ourselves. And perhaps most of all, this idea that I am the doer. I am the thinker. I'm the one thinking right now. I'm responsible for the content of my mind. I'm responsible for my actions as a separate being. For me, this was a very well entrenched idea that I had, and it was running my entire life. And it was a real shock to me that that didn't actually just stop when I'd figured out what self-inquiry could be and actually really looked and seen, and I was getting deeper and deeper in my meditation. But it didn't magically rewire my brain. I had to really develop a willingness to do that. And there were certain thoughts that I really, really held on to and really did not want to let go of. And it was really only when life became so unbearable, still thinking in those ways, that I actually had the willingness to let go of those, to surrender them to the silence of my being. So, if you're in that situation right now, and even if you haven't had a clear seeing of what you really are, you will be already in this changeover process, because even the desire to know what you are is bringing it to you, and already certain thoughts will be unbearable. Thoughts about yourself can bring a lot of suffering. So do you have that willingness to allow your satsang, your spiritual work, to replace the entire way that you think? Can you even function at all without any thoughts going on? Would you even care to get out of bed? Would you want to go to work if there was really no reason for doing it, other than that's what your body seemed to do that day? It got up, it got itself dressed and went to work, and then came home and all of that. And for me, it was very, very shocking that everything I thought was true was suddenly or gradually seen to be untrue. And even after seeing it wasn't true, there was still this seductive thing about these thoughts. It's much easier to go with these thoughts out of force of habit, out of my allegiance to my stories, because I've had them for so long, than it was to kind of stand in the truth. And that's what took the time for me to develop the willingness to allow my whole paradigm to change, my whole view of reality. And that really is the process of whether it stays as just a seeing or where it becomes a being. I'm being it, I'm living it. And we all have these places in our own journey where we really resist looking at certain thoughts. We really don't want to give those thoughts up. Some we do quite easily. Some we hold on to with a passion. And it might not be the thoughts that you really expect that you hold on to. For me, the ones that made me feel good were relatively easy to surrender. And the ones that made me feel the worst were the hardest ones to let go of. The ones, the stories about how I'm never going to make it to awakening, and I'm completely failing at this, and I'm the only one that can't seem to understand what's being said by this particular teacher teaching in a certain satsang. And those kind of thoughts, that there's something fundamentally flawed about me, something imperfect, that I don't deserve awakening, happiness, abundance, whatever was on the end of that sentence that day for me. And as crazy as that sounds, the thoughts that hurt the most were the ones that I held on to longest. So I thought it might be useful to just have a look at why that is. What are the ones that you keep experiencing? What experiences do you keep having? And what thoughts are those a reflection of? Awakening has been traditionally viewed as being a very hard thing to do. I mean, is it, or is it really that our willingness to let these thoughts go could be greater? So the thoughts that I really believed were the ones that I would not let go of. The thought that there was something wrong with me, something shameful about me, that I was crazy for even wanting awakening. These really, really painful stories, and yet I would not give them up because they seemed so true. I was living them, immersed in them. My whole reality was this virtual reality that was going on. I was experiencing these thoughts everywhere I looked. Life was giving me evidence of it, because in actuality, I am the infinite being, and any thought that I'm looking through, I experience. Everybody seemed happy to reinforce that idea. My experience was of those thoughts again and again and again. And you'd think, wouldn't you, that those would be the ones you want to give up most? The idea that there's something wrong with you, or that you're a failure in your awakening journey, that you're never going to get there, that you're actually even going backwards, whatever the thoughts are, that you're never going to make it out of this dark hole that you're in, or whatever's going on for you. You think that those would be the thoughts that would be most easily transcended. This feels terrible. I don't want it anymore. But it feels so terrible because it feels so true. And here is where you're asked to really dig deep. Are you going to encounter a thought that seems really true and you keep experiencing it? What do you do then? Life is going to ask you to change your entire paradigm, not all at once. And a lot of it will fall away on its own, but you will encounter these ones that are really, really challenging, where time and time again, you hold that idea up against what you've seen to be true, that I'm infinite and formless, and I'm not changing, I'm not doing anything. I'm not becoming, my mind and body are. I'm not evolving, any of that stuff. All that's happening in the manifestation, and even then it's not really occurring. So when you really feel that you're not doing enough to reach awakening, or that you're not doing the right thing, and your experience keeps reflecting back disturbance and anger and fear, will you give that thought up then? Perhaps the hardest thing of all is to give up a thought that seems completely true, a story. That, it's never going to happen for you in this lifetime, that you're never going to break through. If you've been experiencing that thought for 25 years, there's going to be very little willingness to let that go, or even to consider that it might not be true, that I might have just been experiencing it over and over again. My thought that I'm never going to break through actually keeps disturbing me real time, 24/7 in my current experience. And the peace is right underneath that, the freedom, right underneath that experience. So what are the thoughts then that seem to be the hardest for you to let go of? What are the awakened perspectives that are the hardest for you to accept? The idea that you were never flawed at all, nor could you ever be. The idea that there is nowhere else for you to go, that you are already this. We pay that lip service. I did, yep, got it. But when it actually came to applying that, when my egoic sense of self gave me another problem to fix, here you go, here's another one that you have to fix before you're free. What did I do with it then? Do I set about doing something, or do I hold firm to my conviction, to my seeing that I'm not really doing anything? The best I can say is things are moving around inside me. Thoughts, bodies, emotions, sensations. So how do we develop this willingness? How do we flip this on its head? How do I come to my life, my experience, with 100% willingness to challenge anything and everything that is brought up for me to look at? For me, it was really only possible to have 100% willingness, that it's automatic that I look at this rather than believe it, or I look at it and believe it rather than simply believing it. You know, that kind of in-between stage where some of you is feeling the emotion of that thought and the story is running. You might even be experiencing it, but there's also something that wants to step back and look at it. Is this actually so? Am I really doing anything? Am I even trying to reach awakening, actually? It was only possible for me when I had seen what I really am and allowed that to kind of fully penetrate my understanding, to kind of deeply infuse into why I was doing this work, this spiritual work. So am I coming to my stories as a separate being that has to overcome them before I can be free, my karmic patterns? Or am I coming as the self, the infinite being that has chosen to embrace these stories, these emotions, these experiences out of love? Why would the infinite self create a human body in the first place? Why would it do that? Well, you could say really that it's not doing anything. It didn't do anything deliberately. And you could also say that in a human being, it takes that shape so that it can recognize itself, understand itself, and release some of these frequencies, work through them, change them back into peace. So when I began to understand then that the reason I am here is to be this presence of love that I already am, this infinite being that can only love, that cannot see any flawed perspective at all, where there isn't any journey, nowhere to get to, nothing to achieve. There's simply the next frequency of thought, emotion, experience that needs some love, some loving acceptance. And I had to really look at that again and again and again, reminding myself again and again that I'm not actually someone trying to transcend something to get back to wholeness. Because when I believed the idea that I have to transcend all of this stuff, it was endless. On and on and on. As soon as I let go of something, there was another 5 things waiting for me to look at. As fast as I'm clearing them off the top of the list, the ego is shoving them on the bottom, you know, more problems to have, to fix. So do you have this willingness? Could you be totally changed in this moment? And if you don't feel you have the willingness, then that's okay. Just to want to have it. As the infinite being you are, the only thing in existence, whatever you want has to come into fruition, to manifestation. To want this willingness, I'm willing to change my whole reason why I'm doing this spiritual work or not doing. I'm willing to be in satsang to realize what's already true, actually. That all that's ever happening is that these thoughts and emotions that float through the human consciousness as a species, species-wide, unworthiness, fear, anger, shame, guilt, apathy, despair, hopelessness, frustration, irritation, impatience, everything and anything from the very lowest thing we can feel up to the slightest irritation. That they're just looking for a human body that's going to let it be felt, be experienced, and then it can turn itself back into peace all by itself, which is what these things are trying to do. What if that's the only reason you have this incarnation? And in doing so, you begin to experience the best human incarnation you could possibly have. A deep and rich, wonderful life filled with love and joy and passion and freedom, openness, trust, abundance of all the things we would want to feel inside, and more than enough resources on the outside. A magical, awe-inspiring life where everything you touch kind of turns to gold. Everyone that you encounter is kind of blessed by your presence. And not in a kind of ooh-ah way, just people feel a little bit better when they spent some time with you, or a lot better, depending on how open they are. And that was what took the time for me to be willing to change my reasons for doing this work, this most amazing, noble, challenging work that we're doing here. So why are you in this satsang now? Are you hoping to get a little bit closer to this imaginary future point, or maybe even arrive at this future point now where you're free? Or are you willing to give that idea away? You know, the word surrender means in its root to give back. So to give back something that was never yours is to surrender. To give back that which is not original to you. Are you willing to stand as the self now? Whatever ideas your mind has about however imperfect you still are and what you need to practice and what you're not sure of, are you willing to take a stand now? You are already that. You're never going to be any more the infinite being than you are right now in this moment. There's only thoughts that are clouding that experience. And with a willingness to shift your entire paradigm, those thoughts can be gone very, very quickly. They'll come back, knocking on the door. Every now and again, do you want to play with me right now? But as the self, you let them in, you don't let them in, it doesn't really make any difference. They're just going to be inside you. They have no power over you. You don't have to get rid of them. You don't have to transcend them. They're just thoughts. No different than a chair, a table. No different than a planet, speck of dust. They're just thoughts. They're here for an infinitesimally small amount of time, and then they disappear. Left alone in their natural state, they come and they go. They don't hang around. So can you, in this moment, dig deep inside and see if you can find a willingness? There's a perfect willingness already present in you. Just, it's not even something you have to cultivate. I'm willing to step into reality right now. Whatever that means, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever that means, I'm up for it. I'm willing to surrender the ideas that I have further to go, that I've got to correct some flaw or earn awakening or be ready for awakening or receive it or embody it. All of those things that I spent a long time trying to do and failed utterly, I'm glad to say. What would your life look like if the only reason you did anything was because that was what was happening right now? If there was just peace and joy, no more journey, no more traveling, no more becoming, just watching your life upgrade, 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 over and over again. Each day a little better. There's nothing that you can do, no process that you can do that's going to get you closer to being willing. That's just going to put you further away. If you set about doing some practice to try to get there, because you're doing that from the idea that you are a someone, a person, a separate being. There's only, in each moment, the increasing conviction that you're already free. Despite what your experience is right now, that's where I'm going to make a stand right now. And I'm saying this to try to shock us out of this not quite there yetness, this kind of one more thing I have to do, fix or solve or become before I'm free. And, you know, even in this physical incarnation, we've been doing that long enough, haven't we? Who knows how many physical bodies have come and gone before that, where we're still doing this. And whether it's this lifetime or 100 lifetimes in the future, it's still going to come down to this particular point right here, isn't it? How willing am I to have all of my thought structure be utterly wrong? That was kind of scary for me. Also exciting, also open, free. I did not know where to stand. I had finally no reference point, and that was terrifying. Because everything that I used to, every problem I encountered, I would go at it as a separate being. What do I do to fix this? Which one of my toolkit do I, spiritual toolkit do I use to kind of find my way back out of this? And in the end, just to let those problems come and go because they're nothing to do with me. It was terrifying. But after 2 or 3 days of making a stand, something really began to shift. And I'd like to invite you to make that choice here. Within you is the resources to combat anything, the courage, the willingness, the love, the compassion, the wisdom, already there, present, covered over maybe currently by these ideas. The willingness and the ability to embrace even the heaviest of emotions and to feel them. From time to time they come up. As the infinite being, they only need to be felt and then they go. The more identified we are as a separate being, the more work we might seem to have to do to let that go. So, are you surrendered to this? Are you willing to give back what we accidentally took on? To allow your whole life to change and become a reflection of this. It'll change and it'll remain exactly the same. Maybe everything remains the same on the outside. A bit more abundance or a lot more abundance. Inside, just emptiness, freedom, passion, joy, just going through each day, experiencing, just experiencing. Just going through that experience, whatever that is, to see what that's like, to experience it. And I hope that I've inspired you that there isn't a better time than now to do that. And you'll forget. You'll go back to becoming, doing, thinking, deciding, all of that. Working, earning, spending, saving. All the things that we think we're doing, being born, living life and dying. You'll go back to it every now and again. And with this willingness in place, you won't be able to stay there for very long. Okay. So I'm just going to read one, maybe two questions that have been sent in. If you would like to ask a question or share something, feel free to raise your hand. We'll take up to 4 questions online. This one says, when you say that we can do things such as take a cup of tea or work from the infinite self, what do you exactly mean? In practical ways, what is this? How can I do these things from the infinite, and how from the finite? So what does it mean in practical ways? Well, it's kind of what we were just talking about, really, letting go of the idea that I'm drinking this tea, or I'm going to work, or I'm raising my children, that is just something that's happening, that these are roles that the body plays, that the infinite self plays through the body, but you're not actually responsible for those things in the way that we think. So are you having a cup of tea, or are you just watching your body do that? What's that like? How's the experience different? You start with the simple things like that. What's it like to just be here and watch your body enjoy this cup of tea or whatever it is, in this example here? What's it like to work when you know you're not working? Does it feel as heavy? Does it feel as tiring? Could it even be joyful, passionate? Could it be exciting even? What if the only purpose for anything is just that you're just doing it? That's what's happening. The body did this thing. So have a play around with that and see what that's like. There's no reason for doing anything. It's a kind of a meaningless, purposeless realization of the self, meaning I'm not doing this to get more money, or to be more liked, or to be more loved, or to get somewhere, or to get this promotion, or those things might happen, probably more likely to happen, in fact, but they're just what's happening. They're not actually anything at all that's going on in that. There's no ego motivation or separate sense of self that's trying to get somewhere from that action. That's perhaps the clearest I could put it in simple terms. In practical ways, your body will just do those things, and it always has, without this vanity of I'm doing this. Life becomes a lot more free-flowing and joyful. Okay, so we'll go to the hands that we have up. Laurie, when you're ready.
Hi, Helen.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
You seem to be. Okay. I have a fear of the intense things that are going on in my body, ending it before I see through the illusion of it. I can't abandon the body altogether in order to deal with pain, etc. But I also need to stand in the knowledge that myself is already perfect and where I need to be. How do I do both?
So just so I'm clear, there's some pain, some stuff going on in the body, and you're asking, how do I stand as myself? How do you stand as yourself? And honor what needs to happen with the body. Is that right?
I guess so. because I had been approaching it from the point of standing in my Christ self, and then all of these bodily things say, well, okay, that's not enough. You can't bypass the body.
Okay. So maybe we're not bypassing the body by standing in the self as the self. Maybe we are standing as the best place to allow the body to heal. So if I am being my infinite self, where there's nothing for me to do, nothing for me to fix, and at the same time, my body's really experiencing something quite awful, going through something, it's not experiencing well-being, vitality, health, then it's going to be much clearer to us what the ideas are that are reflecting, the thoughts we're holding on to that are reflecting as this illness in the body. So we are already the perfect infinite being, but some thoughts that we're looking through are causing our experience to be less than we would like it to be. Those thoughts, like covering over, pulling curtains on a window so that light can't shine through. So those thoughts are going to be much easier to see when you're resting as your real nature. So, and you just mentioned actually one of them, that it's not enough to actually just be myself. That's gonna, something like that. I'm paraphrasing what you said, but can you see this idea that you have to do something else? You have to do something. It's not enough just to sit, not literally physically sit, but be, sit in your own self. Can you see it? Can you feel that idea inside? That's all well and good, resting as a silence, but it's not going to fix this. So maybe it's that idea actually that's the issue. That doing nothing, and I'm not saying you don't go to the doctor, I'm not saying you don't help the body in every way that you need to and can. I'm saying resting as your real self that isn't doing anything, whatever needs to get done will get done. And you'll actually be open to more solutions coming, more help coming, all of that. Some of the ideas that are reflecting as this illness might not be that obvious because they've been there for so long. When there's a lot of physical pain, sometimes there's an idea that's really in resistance to, much in opposition to what you already really are. So the idea that you've got to do something, that you're responsible for your healing as a separate being, you have to figure this out. That's a very heavy burden, isn't it? Can you feel it? It feels awful.
Yeah.
And maybe the only thing that's troubling the body is these ideas, actually, because the body is energy, it is consciousness, it is the self. And energy is supposed to flow. And if we have an idea that's very much in opposition to that flow, we'll end up feeling that as physical pain. At first, it's just a lack of well-being. Then we really start to feel quite bad. And then eventually, this idea becomes so far out of alignment for what you've seen yourself to be that it really causes a lot of trouble. So you can tell what those ideas are. When the pain's really bad, mind will say, you've got to do something about this. You're not fixing this. You're not getting it right. Or your mind will have its own regular suggestions that it gives you there. And most of us would then try even harder to find some resolution. I'm obviously not doing the right thing. I need to, if I was awakened enough, if I was worthy enough, if I was whatever, then this wouldn't be happening. Something like that,
When I sit in meditation, this is what I was coming to.
Yeah.
But then in my groups where we dialogue, I sort of like got this other indication. Well, you have to deal with this. You're presenting something here that you need to look at. And then I got sort of thrown off my course, because when I'm in meditation and I listen specifically to your meditation on the unconditional love, which is marvelous. I love it. And I can be in that place, and
your
I mean, I
body
feel
doesn't,
what you're saying can
yeah,
happen.
yeah, your body doesn't automatically stop functioning just because you're resting as a self. In fact, it might, in meditation, it might move around if it needs to, it might stand up, it might stretch, whatever needs to happen. The body has its own innate intelligence. And all that we're doing when we're standing as the self is getting out of the way of that process. The body might find a particular doctor that you really resonate with, that's got a fresh perspective or a new treatment, or even just being able to feel an emotion that's been trapped might help the body, something like that. So we're not, all those things that are being suggested that you might want to do will probably get done anyway, but without the I'm doing this, I'm organizing, I've got to figure this out, that's such a heavy burden. And
Right.
it is so very opposite to what you've seen yourself to be.
And if you come to the point where you know that it's thy will, not my will be done,
yeah.
then all of those things are going to come out of that, those answers and those.
Even more immediate than that, thy will is being done. We just need to get out of the way of that process. Like healing is trying to spontaneously happen all the time. The power and the compassion and the wisdom of the self naturally flows through and as the body-mind vehicle. It's just what we think we're doing or not doing right that's kind of the middleman in between that needs to, if we can step away from that. When it really, and here's the willingness, when it really seems like I need to figure out what to do, can I step away from that thought right then? Or can I be a bit more willing to step away from that then? And that's really when it's most important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's oftentimes why we have these challenges, because we it really, if I have no money in my bank account and I need some, it's really tempting to believe the idea that I need to figure this out. Yeah. And what am I going to do then in that situation? And of course, my body might take actions, like your body might take actions to look after itself. But it's not coming from the separation, that heavy energy of separation.
So when I go to that place where I feel like I could die if I don't do something because it's so intense what's going on, it's the same thing. It's no different. It's just
That there's an idea.
letting go of the idea that I have to do anything.
You can also investigate that. You can say, well, can that actually happen? Can something happen to my body without my permission? And we've all experienced this, of course. But can these, what ultimately causes the death of the body? What is that's happening for all of us? And it's ultimately only a withdrawal of life force energy from consciousness. Whichever way that happens for each of us, you are unknowingly or knowingly in charge of that process. One of the ideas that really restricts the flow of life force is that something can happen that you have no control over. Something can happen to the body you have no control over. The body and mind emerges out of the self. It's made of the infinite being. It's made out of love. So we have to, again, this is a very popular thought process that we have to be willing to change. That my body takes its lead from what I know to be true, or it experiences my thoughts, that something can happen, so can that thought, if it's scary, looking at that, can that actually occur? Because it's huge, that, isn't it? I might not figure this out in time, and then I'll have to come back and do all of this again, and I've got so far, and all of that. So just looking at that if that's kind of something that's come up for you in a big way, just having a look at that. Actually, is that possible? If the only thing there is me, and I am the infinite being, is there any other power in control of anything than this? And to me, that gave me a lot of peace and a real clarity in just how much I've experienced my thoughts about reality before. over and over again?
Marvelous. Thank you so much.
Good question. Good to talk to you. We'll go to Christine.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
That was super powerful. I really said yes, and
Good.
I really felt so excited by what you were saying, and I'm really feeling the power of that energy right now. Yeah, it's and felt like kind of heart opening as well. And I really related to what you said. It's been through a process over the last week where I was feeling quite peaceful and everything was flowing along quite nicely. I was like, oh, I'm not being triggered by anything.
And then yeah.
Then yeah, up it came, some really, really old stuff, triggered by quite small things, really, but
and then what we do with that, is that happening because you're doing something wrong in your awakening?
That's my old thinking.
Yeah. Or is this happening because I'm so awakened that this can now come to the surface and be released? It's so
I know
that where you go with that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely went down the old path.
We all do. We all do.
I got stuck in it for a day or so, and
why is this happening? What am I doing? Why is it coming back?
I was so anxious and tense and everything, and I could see it happening. You know, I kind of seemed to be powerless to stop it, and part of it was powerlessness. It was you know, a situation that felt out of my control to do right. And it's a very, very old feeling that comes up of frustration, and then I think shame, and then I just want to burst into tears in terribly inappropriate situations like at work. And
not very helpful.
you know, that's really powerful. And so I came to the is it really true I'm powerless?
Good. What happened then?
And I had a lot of anxiety and had to eat a lot of crisps for a little while, and like really resisted it. And then I finally got myself to sit down and try it, and it really, my whole body relaxed.
That idea is so untrue. It felt true as a separate being that you can be powerless over something, but if you are everything that exists, then that idea is really going to hurt you, isn't it? That there's something you are out of control of.
Yeah. So I'm really willing, I'm really ready to let go of all these beliefs that are just not helping.
Not giving ourselves a hard time, because these are ideas that are accepted by the rest of the world completely. There's nothing I can do about that. I might not get what I want. You know, it's up to luck or something, what happens in my life. You know, all these ideas, I'm working, I'm doing, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, they're so well believed by us that it seems strange to even question them at first, doesn't it? And we've believed them for so long.
Yes, and the one that we are that you were talking about at first, that we're responsible, and of course that's through our whole. You know, I used to work for corrections. It's our whole legal justice system. You know, that whole. You know, it's so well entrenched, isn't it, in our whole world. Yeah.
Part and parcel of the idea of being the doer is I'm responsible for this. You know, and even I'm responsible for my awakening. I mean, what if that's not true and it's just unfolding through conversations like these, through meditation? It's just unfolding and it can't be stopped. This idea that I've got to make it happen.
Yes, I definitely have been buying into that one.
We all do. I did for about 15 years or so, you know, before I started to doubt it, question. But what if that's not actually the case?
Yeah. And the one that I realized with the last teacher that I followed, I kind of started to realize even at the time that I wanted something from them.
Yeah.
And I thought that they had the answer that I didn't have.
Yeah.
And so that just did not work at all.
That's quite painful, that one, isn't it? Yeah.
It was painful. It was painful.
Because it's the last place we want to go in our thought process. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Am I willing to entertain the idea that I am already that there is no difference between me and the teacher, and everything in our mind says, well, that's so obviously not true, look at your experience compared to theirs. But it's that idea that's disturbing our experience, isn't it?
Yeah, that's quite a big one. Seems like a big one to get past. I should say seems like, because I don't want to make it into another big one.
Just that willingness, though, like you said yes to it. So the amount of time that you can get lost in a thought for now is going to be much shorter. With the willingness, it could be seconds. Ooh, this feels really bad. What have I grabbed a hold of? A couple of minutes rather than a couple of days, or whatever it used to be for us, with that willingness.
Okay, thank you. Because I was going to say, I have no idea how to do this. No idea.
You don't need to. Yeah. What if it cannot be stopped? What if it's unfolding? What if the best that you can do is slow that process down with your resistance to awakening? What if it's already an avalanche that's out of control and there's nothing you can do to stop it?
Yeah,
that's a very different idea. You can dig your heels in and really resist, and we all do. But if you are already that, there's nothing that can stop it. It's simply reflecting clearer and clearer each day through the mind and body, isn't it? That's all that's happening here. When we really get that, I'm not actually responsible for making awakening happen. I'm here because it's already happening. That's like, oh.
Yeah. What a relief. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to remind yourself of that one a few times.
Yeah, I'll come back to it. I'll make sure I save this one. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
Okay. Stephanie? Hi.
Hi, Helen, and thank you for working with me the last time I was on. And
You did amazing. I've had so many people saying how brave you were to do that with me live. So well done. Not easy.
Thank you very much. I feel I had a question that was really clear, but since I've been listening to everybody, and there's so much that's coming up for me, and listening to the Satsang, that I'm just gonna shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
I'm triggered by the fact that I have a lot of old trauma issues and abuse stuff. I've been in a really happy marriage for 33 years, but there's still stuff hanging out. And I have a son that's very mentally ill, and there has been a lot of extreme dependence between him and me. My believing that he really needs me, and I've been withdrawing that from that for some time, and it caused me to have a severe breakdown, to back up from him and begin to not let him be really, really dependent upon me and recruit me to do for him, and emotionally be there for him. So this business of, whoa, I'm really necessary, and I'm it's really powerful at this moment. I've been triggered because he's been moved to a new place after being in a hospital, and he's not happy there. and so my ability to be really in the space and in the presence, which I've been practicing a lot since I spoke to you last, it just kind of got blown out of the water, where I'm back kind of in my bomb shelter, believing that I cannot be at peace and I can't even move freely until this person feels better, which has been just, it's just old abuse stuff. It's like, oh my God, if that person's feeling bad, then bad things are going to happen to me. And it means that I'm wrong and bad and a failure and all that crap. So when you are talking today about I'm not really doing anything, I have had moments where that was true. Boy, it's not true right now.
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy. So I'm having trouble with not believing that I'm the doer.
Yeah.
And believing that whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing, I'm failing at.
Let me ask you a strange question. What's the evidence that you've got? How do you know that you're failing at this? You just said the word failure or failing. So what makes you so sure that you're failing right now? I know it's a strange question, perhaps, but
I think because I feel so tight.
So there's emotions going on. There's real bodily constriction, tension. There's probably a whole heap of thoughts going on. Is that good enough evidence of your failure? Can we look at that? That's what we'd normally jump to the conclusion. Because I'm feeling this way and my mind is going crazy, I'm obviously not succeeding at resting as myself, something like that, right?
Yeah, and I'm failing at helping my son because part of me just wants him to shut up and go away. I have to admit that
that's
feeling.
Totally understandable. You'll have somewhere inside where you just don't want it, So can we look at this idea that you're failing here? So or maybe a better question is, what is the best way to help him right now? Is it to physically go do something? And that may happen, it may not, but let's get from a clear place first and then see what action wants to happen from there, because you could do a whole heap of physical action from this place of really resisting what is, and it'd be ineffective at helping. You could do a tiny bit of action from a place of clarity and it'd be really effective at helping him. Right? And you've probably experienced that, where no amount of action is enough because it's coming from some incompleteness inside anyway. So
yes.
What's the best way then to help him right now? That might not be something that it might just be an instinctive impulse to go do the same things you've done before. And that's why there's tension inside.
When you were speaking to Christina earlier, I had the sense that maybe the best thing I can do right now is to be lovingly present to his frustration and to where he's at, to him, to the space around him and the space around me, but not to do anything.
Yeah, to be the presence. Sometimes that means to keep my attention on it. Maybe we do that in meditation, bring attention back to the presence. Sometimes for me, that meant being that presence with whatever was happening in my body, right? So we talked about that in terms of physical pain with Laurie and with ideas with Christine. And then now can you be, what does it mean to be that presence now? As you said, there's two bodies. They're both yours and your son's, and they're both feeling however they're feeling, experiencing whatever they're experiencing. What would the presence do or not do? And you said something beautiful, and I'm paraphrasing, it would just let that experience be completely. So what happens when you don't try to change what's going on in your body right now or his? Doesn't mean you're not helping. That's the idea that gets in the way here. Maybe this is the best way initially to help. If I just let myself experience what's going on right now. What just for a moment. Don't try to change anything right now. You don't have to like what's happening. You're never going to like these feelings, but can you just not try to change them? And same with your son. Of course, you want him to be better, more independent, to feel happier, all of that stuff. But right now, he is as he is. And I have been right there with children with mental health challenges. So I'm right where you're at. I have been there. And the instinct is very strong as a parent to try to change what is. But maybe now the best way is to be that place that cannot push against what is. And then see what actions come from that. Immediately, as you just honor what's being experienced, not liking it, but honoring it, because it is what's happening. Body starts to relax a little bit, just a little bit at first. And you don't feel so kind of tangled up inside, right?
I do feel, as I'm talking to you, I can be present to him and his suffering, and it feels like there is a loving presence there that it's big, it's roomy, it's a roomier feeling, and I'm breathing easier. And
Good.
While I'm talking to you and while I'm with the Sangha, I feel like.
And then later you go to see him and the old frustration arises, the old thing arises, the desire to change him, for his experience to change. Let's say all of that comes back when you're standing with him, sitting with him, whatever. So what does it mean then to be the presence? Can you allow everything that you're feeling then? I do not like this situation. I'd like it to be different. Can you let that strong desire be there? Just let it be there. Whatever the intensity comes up, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I wish this wasn't happening. Whatever's going on in that moment, if you can imagine yourself with him right now, whatever thoughts and feelings will come up, and you can kind of practice in advance. I'm going to see what happens when I don't try to change mine or his experience, even though that might seem like the best thing to do to help. Maybe now, with awakening taking root, that's actually getting in the way. Maybe even wanting him to feel better is slowing down what's already trying to happen. Of course you want him to feel better, but as the presence, can it try to change anything? Not so much, right? What happens when I just get all intentions out of the way, even the most noble, highest, best ones? Which is why we feel so much angst when it's our children, because of course we want their suffering to come to an end. And of course we want to be free too, And mind might say this is really cold. You don't want your child to feel better, but you do. You're just going about it the most intelligent way now. What if I honor him by allowing him to be exactly as he is in this moment, whatever that looks like? And as my body relaxes in that, his has to too, in a mirror, because he is also me.
Oh wow, that is, I can sense in this moment that there's some kind of truth in that I don't really understand, but I
It
can
has to kind of
sense
be experienced, doesn't it, to kind of see the truth in it. Yeah.
there is a belief that pops up that just started. I came from 12 years of Catholic school and a lot, and I'm supposed to suffer is a belief that's in there, that suffering will purify me and make me a better person, and that there's this burden that's just, okay, this is yours, it's your assignment, you're supposed to suffer through this. So when I think about being present,
Is that going to help anyone?
I can't think it can help anyone, but I was always told that God thought it was, and that I was going to get some points or help people that were in purgatory to get out if I suffered willingly.
That only works if I'm impure to start off with. I can only purify myself if I'm impure to start off with. And if that is the fundamental incorrect assumption about ourselves, then no amount of suffering is going to help, but it may drive us towards a point where we're willing to challenge these thoughts that we've held on to and experienced for so long. Is suffering going to help you or your son right now? What if, and here's a total 180 on what mine says, at any moment your son is in a process of healing, at every moment, and it's only our own thoughts that we're experiencing that's delaying that, holding it in a perpetual status quo. And as I stop projecting what I want to happen onto that person, because I'm starting to see it's already trying to happen, then it can begin to immediately, it's very hard for anyone, including your son, to try to change his experience when there's a being right next to them that doesn't need their experience to change. Because coming to understand that the thing that they're experiencing right now is the highest thing that's possible. And as I let that experience be, very next moment, there's something even better, even higher for that person. And on it goes. That spontaneously healing is trying to happen 24/7, all the time.
Is that sounds wonderful. I want to believe the truth of that. It's a little scary for me to believe that.
Well, let's look at it this way, because my mind needed a little convincing. Has it worked trying to change what is? Has that helped permanently? No. So we might as well give this a go, even just for a minute. What's it like for a minute if I just inwardly, of course, don't say that to him, but inwardly let him have whatever experience he's having, just for a moment? Your own body will reflect immediately the truth in that. Of course, you still want him to feel better, but trying to change his experience isn't the way that is going to happen, is it? You know?
I felt some relaxation with that.
Yeah. And that's letting his experience be is not just affecting your body. Right now, as we're talking, it's affecting him too, because there is no time and space. His experience is changing now, just from you allowing, because he probably can't do this for himself just now, but you can.
So I can be present to this and not change my icky little feelings running around of, God, how long do I have to go through this shit? Can you just please, or this is unbearable to watch you suffer. You know, I can, if those feelings are coming up and around, I can just go, okay, I see you. But
I'm not going to buy those stars. I'm not going to try and get rid of them, but I'm also not going to buy them. Right?
Okay. And I'm not going to make a glorious spiritual job out of enduring the suffering either. Like,
You've got
okay,
nothing to prove to anyone, least of all
Okay.
God. None
okay,
of us have. Because
Okay.
the idea that we fell from grace is the original lie. We are that grace. So it just lets us be. It just lets us be. And that has a profound effect on anybody that comes into your vicinity.
thanks, Helen. I'm gonna work with that. Okay, I can work with that.
Just try it for a moment and then a minute, and you'll
Okay.
see the effect it has on him quite quickly. And he won't probably understand what's going on, and that's okay. You will. You'll know. This is the
Okay.
best way to help him now, right? We've tried the other way. Not so effective. Wonderful. Very brave again.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, last but not least, Avishag, when you're ready. You're still muted there.
Hi. So there's an aspect of this has been very easy for me, and it just keeps getting easier, which is watching the reactive patterns and then just knowing immediately that they're not true. And
yeah,
and then I have a labeling practice, and I just label whatever. I sort of look for where is the thing that feels stuck, but I don't think too much. I look,
yeah.
and then it comes. And so this practice is going well, but then there's not really knowing, and that's been coming up a lot. And maybe it's just the mind messing with me. I just need clarification.
So explain what you mean by not really knowing.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Okay, sorry.
Let me just turn that off. So there's this sense of not knowing that I'm doing the right thing in terms of practice. And it seems like that theme of the right thing, it's not even about right and wrong. It's about the next, the best right move that I'm available for. And there, when I tune in, I feel the holding back, and then I label it, and it starts to unwind. So on the one hand, maybe I'm just walking through all the holding back patterns, and then these are just the resistance, the patterns that are coming up. On the other hand, maybe I need to be doing a more formal meditation practice because I've dropped it. And I'm not going into deep silence. The deep silence comes after something disappears.
Yeah.
It drops away, and there's that quietness and that stillness. But
And
I
is it
don't
coming
stay.
more spontaneously during the day as well? Is it just happening spontaneously as well? Like just random moments, sometimes you just feel deeply quiet, something like that.
Well, I've always had that here and there.
Yeah.
So I can't say that it's more frequent. I can just say there's more steadiness in my steadiness.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
But in my spiritual practice, I'm feeling uneasy about the fact I quit meditating on a regular basis 2 or 3 years ago, and I just switched to labeling. And I'm not calling that meditation, even though there's a lot of, because it doesn't go all the way. It just only goes to the release, and then it starts over. And I feel like on the one hand, it's teaching me to let go of some grasping protective patterns that are just very powerful.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm not really choosing to practice more openly, which I have the capacity for. And so I'm worried that there's this uncertainty, really more than a worry. Like it's slightly like a worry. It's not something that's ruminating or really hope, but it's also,
always good to
there's no
make sure
clarity.
you're heading in the right direction, so to speak, isn't it? Because 2 years from now, if you're not doing an effective practice, and 2 years from now, you can find yourself really off track, right? So it's always good to check. So is your life generally becoming more peaceful, easier?
Honestly, my life is really simple. So I don't know how it could become more peaceful. It's been so, I'm literally moving. I'm going to India for 6 months. I'm just leaving everybody. I think it seems a simple thing to do, but everybody seems to think it's big.
Are you
But
feeling more peace generally day by day? There'll be ups and downs in that, but as you go through, are you feeling more peace than you did last year, this time last year, for example?
I think, yeah, I definitely have more ease around more things, and I'm able to be steady even with other people's difficulties. In fact, I have to address other people's difficulties on occasion, because it's just in my environment. And I do have the feedback that it's helpful and it's making a difference. I can feel it make a difference in other people too. So, and that's increased. It
Sounds
but
like you're on track then. It sounds like if you just kind of notice this idea that you're choosing whether to meditate or not. Like if you take that idea out of the equation, and you could say, well, some kind of formal practice has stopped some time ago. If I didn't make that decision, if that just happened, then it brings a different perspective to why that's happened, doesn't it? Maybe something just wanted to be. For me, meditation moved from something I was doing to something I was just being. It was just is. More and more what is being experienced, just thoughts happening, all of that, and you can't grab a hold of them so much or at all in the end.
Can I say why I shifted? Because I think it'll help me walk through it a little. So there was too much intensity coming up, and there was inner messages to focus, cultivate more joyful states. But I couldn't do it. It was like triggering. It's bringing up emotion to just look at that. And that's passing. So I decided to just let myself just fall away from it and to let those habits change. And I just switched to the labeling, and I was doing it by myself, and then I found the diet group, and so I'm just doing it with a stranger. And I can feel like there's something that's afraid to go back, because I guess the fear of disconnection, like I'd be isolated or I'd be alone, and it wouldn't be fun. So I think there's a story about that.
Yes, if you're being guided by how much joy you're feeling, that's always a good compass to have. It's been particularly effective practice for me. Why am I doing this meditation anyway? Or why am I, what's the reason behind it? And all the other reasons fell away eventually. And the formal kind of sitting every day eventually fell away, because it was just happening more and more that I was feeling joyful and just being present, not through any efforting, it was just happening. So if that's what's happening for you, then I'd say that you're following that intuitive guidance quite well. Is the joy increasing? Are you generally experiencing more happiness, joy?
I don't know. So I think it's just right now, what's strong is the awareness of that feeling, the fear, and it's not loud in the head, it's in the heart.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's true, it's not a fact, but it is, I think, a fear from the past. So I think it's kind of getting in the way.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to label that, but I'm trying to
you can always
explore how to walk through it
to your own guidance by asking, is this the most effective way for me to be with this right now? What's the best thing to do? And you will be guided to that. It sounds like you're really good at listening to that guidance and following it, even when it's contradicting what other people think you should do, which is, always going to be what's best for you is most effective, isn't it? Just, if you're unsure at any point, you can just ask, is this, I'd like a clear sign, actually, is this the most effective way for me to be right now, the most effective practice, or be guided by the joy, which is the path to more joy here? and let life show you that, take you through that.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting clear about is that this was the most effective practice, and now it's this fear that's in the way. And to answer the question, is there more joy? I think it would have been easier for me to say, is there more peace?
Yeah.
Because that was clear.
Yeah.
But I guess because the joy is sort of in the uncertain space right now.
Yeah, and there might not be really sort of in your face joy if there's some fear in the body anyway currently that's being worked through, or in the heart, worked through. It may seem to diminish, and then as that fear, as you said before, as that fear goes, there's a deeper peace behind that, a deeper love, a deeper connection. That's the energy that was fear is now back into peace, turned back into peace, isn't it? So ultimately, we can't, if our allegiance is to the truth of our being, we can't really get too far off track. Life will course correct us somehow. As you said, the intensity when you're doing the meditation was becoming too much, so that there's an intuitive nudge. This may not be the most effective thing for me to do right now. There's times when I did a lot of meditation, but I was trying to get somewhere with it, so it was largely ineffective. There's times I didn't do very much at all, but it was very effective because I was just doing it because I was enjoying it. So sometimes less is more, or none is more, in a formal, I'm going to sit down and meditate way.
Yeah, I mean, you even told me that I don't have to meditate, like when I asked before, and I was like, but I do feel like I had to do something, staying in conscious connection, and that was my diet practice, was my solution.
If you're going through your day and meeting whatever thoughts and experiences and emotions come up in a conscious way, in a curious conscious way, that's meditation, isn't it? That's it, really. So it might be that it's happening but not in a way that we recognize, because it's just more and more accidentally what we're doing. We're just kind of sliding into that without a great deal of efforting.
Well, there's still the contrast between when I'm tuning in and I'm more present than when I'm just doing things. But when I'm doing things, I don't feel busy.
Yeah.
Even if I'm concerned about something, I don't feel busy. I'm just investigating the concern. But that's been the case for a while. So,
yeah,
there's the contrast to say, oh yeah, it's different.
I think it sounds like to me that you're just naturally moving to more where meditation is just happening rather than anyone doing it. And that might just be, I'm calmer when I'm out in a stressful situation. I'm just calmer than I would be, or more peaceful than I would have been. Effective meditation doesn't necessarily mean I can sit still for 6 hours and lose all awareness of the world, although that might happen. But effective meditation for me is I'm suffering less and less each day. I'm more and more peaceful. Overall, there's going to be, bumps in that, but overall, I'm feeling more peace, moving towards more love and more joy. And my life, I'm not resisting what is so much. My experience might be able to change. Those would be the signs that I'd be looking for. It's not, has all this stuff stopped happening, but am I meeting it in a different way more consistently? Am I just being with it like we were talking about before? Just being that presence, whatever that looks like in that moment. It sounds like you are.
Yeah, because the question that comes up, I guess, is because I'm assuming it's purification. I know what I'm calling purification is letting go of conditioning.
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just really seems to be. There's nothing that says it isn't. And so the question comes up is, what if I'm deluding myself and I'm just going to continue going in the spiral of just trying to get rid of things?
You have that question, what if I'm deluding myself? You can't delude yourself. If you were deluding yourself, that wouldn't even come into your mind, that thought. You'd just be happily off doing some ineffective practice, thinking you're getting somewhere, right? So that thought, am I deluding myself, is a really good insurance policy that you can't get too far off track. because you just wouldn't be thinking that way if you were heading off on a tangent, into some cul-de-sac somewhere. And I've done that as well, I think we've all done that. But if I have the wisdom to ask, could I be deluding myself, then it's very difficult to actually be doing it. It's really, in fact, impossible, actually. So if that's your compass, am I actually heading towards reality here, or living more as reality, I should say, then that is the perfect place to hang out for me. In my journey, that was the only thing that was important in the end. And willingness to actually see I might be deluding myself means it's very difficult to do that then. And you get a sense of that. I mean, sometimes it's good just to talk it through and get a verification of what you know. But if you really want to wake up and live as that freedom, you're not going to be able to go too far wrong for too long before life pushes you in another direction, nudges you back onto the most direct, fastest path.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm moving.
Yeah.
It's just sort of came up and I'm just sort of doing it.
Going with it.
See what happens.
Yeah.
Money just showed up. It all just kind of like, okay.
It's always a good sign that it's the right thing when the resources show up to do it. Yeah. Wonderful. Have an amazing time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome. Okay, so I will leave it there for today. Thank you for all your profound questions and sharings and insights. And most of all, thank you for the courage to be in Satsang consciously, because it's not the easiest thing, is it? It's the most rewarding, but not the easiest. So thank you. Namaste.